Jeffrey Edmonds. He's a former director for Russia at the National Security Council and now a senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Jeffrey, thanks for being with us. This comment from Secretary of State Rubio about Ukraine making difficult decisions, what does that entail?
It's hard to know what they mean by decisions unless they mean completely giving in to Putin's demands, because there's really not a peace deal to be had as long as Putin believes he's winning. As long as he thinks he can achieve his strategic goals by the way he's doing it now, by taking land in Ukraine, there's not going to be any meaningful peace deals coming out of Russia.
Should we stop looking at this as a negotiated peace by the U.S. and more as a negotiated surrender of Ukraine?
That's how I would look at it, because it's not, Putin hasn't voiced any kind of, or hasn't signaled he's willing to back away from his strategic goals at all. So it's difficult to see what the actual negotiating space would be unless you're just giving him everything he wants.
How is the dynamic for these negotiations changed since that Oval Office meeting? Because to Alex's point about a carrot and a stick, it seems like the U.S. is punishing Ukraine.
That's right. It seems like there's this view that Ukraine is the entity that's in the way of the peace deal. Right, it's almost like get Ukraine out of the way so that the U.S. and Russia can improve their own relations. But there's really nothing to be had there. So it's really, there's not much change away from this idea that Ukraine is standing in the way of peace, and that's just not true.
And you hear Zelensky reiterating this, especially since that Oval Office meeting. He's saying Ukraine has been for peace since day one of this war, and it's really Russia's fault that this war is continuing. He's meeting with the Crown Prince. I mean, what is to be gained? What are you looking for in that meeting? I think he's looking for support in addition to whatever limited support the United States is going to continue to give him. And he's still trying to hold, the center, not the center stage, but trying to hold public opinion on the Ukrainian side, given the fact that the United States has taken such a dramatic shift in its approach to Ukraine.
To your point about surrender versus negotiated peace, where do you see the lines being drawn when it comes to new borders? Because Ukraine says that they're preventing a Russian advance in the east. Russia is making advances in Kursk, that part of Russia that Ukraine has made some gains in. Where does that line wind up landing?
I think it's important to realize that for Putin, the number one objective is not land. I think that's something that a lot of people think. It is about the neutrality and demilitarization of Ukraine. That's the central goal here. Besides Luhansk and Donetsk, that's notionally where the line would be. But I don't think he wouldn't stop there if he didn't get those strategic goals of the neutrality of Ukraine and the demilitarization of Ukraine.
And so how does that look like in a negotiation, that neutrality of Ukraine that he desires? Do you expect that to come from this, or do you expect it not to come from that, such that he continues what appears to be these territorial goals?
It's not. I don't think the Ukrainians certainly don't want this now. They've talked about neutrality in the past, but not with Russia, not with Russia's invasion.
That's right.
And so I think what Putin wants is the United States to force the Ukrainians into some kind of neutrality agreement, because he doesn't trust the Ukrainians. And so it's got to be backed by us, and that would really be kind of a fundamental shift in U.S. foreign policy.
Jeffrey Edmonds, very much appreciate the perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Still plenty more